Some more FISA news. So this is all recent. This is not old news uh, in terms of what's been on the media or mainstream media or what have you. So this is all current from either last month or this month, like as recent as yesterday. So I'm just gonna play a few clips. Just pay attention to the names of these clips because I'm not gonna play the whole thing. I'm just gonna play like little parts of it, just so you guys can hear the gist of what's going on. And so again, the FISA 702 is up for renewal, and they have until December 31st. We are already in the month of December. Today is December the was it the 5th? Yes, December the 5th. And you have some politicians that are like, this cannot be renewed. You have others that are like, it has to be renewed, but we got to have major reforms. So, I mean, there's all this talk about what they're going to do. They vigorously and outright display disdain for the program. Quite a few of them do. Some of these politicians and the atrocities that these programs are involved in terms of violating the rights of the citizens of this country. They blatantly make it very clear that people's rights are being violated, and it's not going to be something that is going to be tolerated. So we'll see what they do. Like I said, I honestly don't know what's going to happen. All we can do is hope. Um, who's to say that I don't hear them talking about the CIA. I don't hear them talking about NSA as much. It's always the FBI. So maybe the FBI is just the main culprit behind, you know, the gang stalking and harassment and whatnot. I don't know why I feel like with my targeting, there's like it's just a hint of it reeks of CIA as well, you know. So it'd be just very interesting to see how things play out. I'm sure it's going to take some time if they decide to renew it, but with uh, heavy oversight and heavy reforms, it's still going to take some time to, you know, I guess get people out that are not going to comply with, the rules and regulations and the laws and all that to kind of, you know, have disciplinary action against them or just flat out fire them. I honestly don't see that happening with this current administration that's going on. There's so much evidence of corruption with this current administration that's in office right now. It's just ridiculous. But um, at least this stuff's being talked about. Can you remember years back, at least when my targeting started in 2014, or let me not say started in 2014. 2014 was when I became aware of the term organized stalking and harassment, and I became aware that there are other people going through it by way of the internet, Google, YouTube, you know, Twitter, and all that kind of stuff. And back then, there was no talk of targeted individuals. I mean, you had some. The only news exposure that I saw was with Dr. John Hall. He was like a surgeon or something in San Antonio, and he had this lady friend who became targeted. And I remember seeing that news story. But other than that, you really didn't see too many other news stories or them even talking about the FISA 702 back then. So now it's like you've had politicians that have been subject to the queries, the FISA 702 queries by way of the FBI. Now they're wanting to look into it and make revisions. Trump especially uh, is a big victim of this FISA 702 stuff that's going on. And ironically, he was the one that renewed the whole FISA 702 thing back years ago. Maybe he didn't fully understand the ramifications of it, or what exactly was being done with this program. I'm pretty sure he does now. So we'll see what happens. Again, time and time again, I have said, put no trust and faith in man. And I'm not saying to trust any of these people. All I'm saying is just it's very interesting to watch this stuff play out and to see how much media attention this is now getting. So we'll see what happens. Um, I feel like the government isn't the only means of financial resources that the FBI needs to do this program. So let's say if Congress does cut off the funding, it's like it's almost as if like you have corporations that wouldn't mind paying for the shit. They alone could carry it without the help of Congress, like that type of thing. Like that's how I'm kind of feeling about it. I want to be positive, I want to be hopeful, but like I said, we're living in a time where it's just, man, the evil is so rampant. Like people are just have shown you who they really are. Like just everyone around you and people that you thought was down for you or looking out for you. It's like man, a lot of these people are devils, man. I can't believe it. But we got to get past the not believing part, and we gotta we gotta be fully awake and believe and know it to be fact and know it to be true and not try to psych ourselves out anymore. I used to try to psych myself out so much with people like, oh, they would never do this or no, not them. They're good people, but shit, man. As time goes on, it's like the Most High lets you see, you know, that light within allows you to really see people for who and what they are. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. So I'm just gonna play a few clippings here. Start with what do I want to start with? That's like some old school stuff I was watching, one of my old school videos. Uh, Let me play this.
October 7th, it's only gotten worse in the months since. I could go on and on about the important work the FBI's dedicated professionals are doing across the entire spectrum of threats.
So this is the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, testifying before a Senate committee at the oversight hearing. Again, this is recent. This is December 5th, which is today actually. So this is not old stuff. Okay, so this is it's ramping up. That time is creeping up on us for whether or not they're gonna renew this shit. So there's a lot of talk about FISA. There will continue to be a lot of talks within the coming weeks, obviously. So this is him, giving his little bullshit speech about how we really need it and all that kind of shit. It was just something I wanted to point out that he was saying. One second.
And every day to protect their fellow Americans. But in the time I have here this morning, I want to emphasize the importance of one tool in particular that is indispensable to our efforts to combat threats posed by foreign adversaries, one that will expire in just a few short weeks if Congress does not act, and that is FISA's 702 authorities for the FBI. As this committee knows, 702 allows us to stay a step ahead of foreign actors located outside the United States who pose a threat to national security. And the expiration of our 702 authorities would be devastating to the FBI's ability to protect Americans from those threats. So let me explain just a bit about what I mean by that. When an overseas cyber criminal breaches a transportation hub, a public utility, or even a children's hospital, 702 is often the tool we use to find victims and get them what they need to get their systems back up and running. And just as important, it helps us identify the next targets so they can defend themselves against an attack. In just one recent cyber case, for instance, 702 allowed the FBI to alert more than 300 victims in every state and countries around the world. And I should add,
Did you hear what he just said? Go back a little bit. Thing is so sensitive. One second. I want to go to mouse. I got to get another mouse. Mouse sucks.
Indispensable to our efforts to combat threats posed by foreign adversaries, one that will expire in just a few short weeks if Congress does not act, and that is FISA's 702 authorities for the FBI. As this committee knows, 702 allows us to stay a step ahead of foreign actors located outside the United States who pose a threat to national security. And the expiration of our 702 authorities would be devastating to the FBI's ability to protect Americans from those threats. So let me explain just a bit about what I mean by that. When an overseas cyber criminal breaches a transportation hub, a public utility, or even a children's hospital, 702 is often the tool we use to find victims and get them what they need to get their systems back up and running. And just as important, it helps us identify the next targets so they can defend themselves against an attack. In just one.
How does 702 help identify the next targets? Okay. Let me play a little bit more than I explain what I'm trying to say.
Recent cyber case, for instance, 702 allowed the FBI to alert more than 300 victims.
702 allowed the FBI to alert more than 300 victims. Alert more than 300 victims. How was the FBI able to do that? What way could a government agency be able to alert a large masses of people at one time? What way? Cell phones, right? So that goes back to what I was saying about the emergency broadcasting system, that they could be possibly using a system of that magnitude or something similar, some app or something, to alert individuals in the area wherever the targeted individual is at. And this is how they're able to spread their propaganda, their slander, and their lies about the target to get the community to come against the target. Okay? He just said they're able to alert over 300 people in the area. And again, I asked the question, how would they be able to do that? By way of fucking cell phone. Okay? I'll play it a little. I'll play it again. I can go back too much.
An overseas cyber criminal breaches a transportation hub, a public utility, or even a children's hospital, 702 is often the tool we use to find victims and get them what they need to get their systems back up and running. And just as important, it helps us identify the next targets so they can defend themselves against an attack. In just one.
So in this case, in terms of in terms of the United States targeted individual, the targets that he's speaking of are these fucking perps that they use to terrorize targeted individuals. Okay? Now all this shit that he's talking about is fine and dandy if that's what it's really being used for. But that's not what this shit is being used for. You and I both know. You and I that are going through this shit, we both know that this is a bunch of it's a crock of shit. Okay? They are utilizing this shit to terrorize innocent people, not just American citizens, because this shit is not just happening here in the US. It's going on all over the world. You have targeted individuals that have come back to report that this shit is happening in other countries that they visited. Okay? So it's all a crock of shit at the end of the day.
One recent cyber case, for instance, 702 allowed the FBI to alert more than 300 victims in every state and countries around the world. And I should add that many of those crucial victim notifications were made possible by our ability to conduct U.S. person queries of our existing 702 collection.
So it's those queries that initiate this shit. It's the queries that allows them to put out these fucking alerts on us. Okay? These people are telling you how they've been doing this shit. That's why when you say, oh, these people are in their cell phones all the time whenever they're around us, or they have their cameras pointed at us and all kind of shit, it's all part of this whole FISA 702 shit. That's why I've been telling targeted individuals to pay attention to the media and what they're talking about in terms of this, because this directly affects us. Okay? Yes, it's spiritual and all this other kind of stuff, but they are here telling you that they've been doing this shit. They are blatantly telling you at these committee oversight hearings, these judiciary committee hearings and all this kind of shit. They're telling you what they've been fucking doing. So we'll see what these people are going to do at the end of the month. I've already heard some proposals that they put out for reforms. Like they have some plans that they talked about. There's some other videos I'm gonna share. Like I said, I'm not gonna play the whole thing because it's like this one's over 3 hours long. I've watched and listened to the whole thing myself personally. So you take it upon yourself to Google or to put this in the YouTube search and listen to it for yourself. It's all in there, all of it.
When it comes to foreign adversaries like Iran, whose actions across a whole host
Has anyone had Iran doing has Iran done anything to you personally? I'm asking this question to targeted individuals. Have you ever had any beef with Iran? Do you know of any Iranians that you have beef with? Anyways, let me go ahead and move on to this next. Yeah, let's listen to this one for a little bit.
Well, we are not going to reauthorize
Here, this guy is, they're just talking about reauthorization. Again, this is recent. This is not no old shit. This is from 4 days ago. Okay, beginning of the December. Go back just a little bit.
Well, we are not going to reauthorize.
They completely abused from warrantlessly spying on Americans, unchecked, warrantless Johnson to vote against reauthorizing FISA. The letter states the privacy of Americans should be of the utmost importance to our government, and yet we have seen too many examples of unchecked, warrantless surveillance of Americans. Congress must work to stop the government from warrantlessly spying on Americans. Congressman, we know what they did during the Russia collusion story, where they completely abused FISA. Where do you stand on this reauthorization?
Well, we are not going to reauthorize FISA without serious reforms that never will allow anything that happened to President Trump to ever happen again, and to ensure we protect Americans' privacy and to make sure that the FISA court has the oversight it should have and that the FBI is completely reformed. So those are all embedded in Republican leadership to reform FISA. But let me say this.
And see, with that FBI reform shit, like I said, I don't see that happening during the current administration because the FBI has been complicit with protecting the current administration, which has been proven to be extremely corrupt. Okay? It's been proven that the Department of Justice has been protecting this corrupt administration that is currently in office right now. Okay? So to say that they're going to like clean swamp in this administration, I would be surprised. Like I said, if they decide not to renew it, that's wonderful because that means they cut the funding right off. There's no funding for it. But see, with the reform shit, it lets them get by because they can speak with their mouth and say, oh, yes, we're going to change this. We're going to have a special counsel for the oversight of the FISA queries, and we're going to have new judges who can't be bought, and all this old kind of shit that they're talking about. They can say all that stuff, stuff that tickles your ear and makes everything sound good, but are they actually going to do it? So I totally oppose the renewal of it. I've always said this. I don't care about no reform. They need to get rid of it. But, you know, there being reform is better than nothing happening at all, you know. So I don't see no changes. They've been talking about this director Ray guy was talking about some things that they've already been doing and implementing. I've not seen no changes. It's the same type of activities is still occurring. Same type of activities is still occurring. Ain't nothing changed. Not at least not for me. I don't know about y'all. So let's continue to play this.
We cannot let Section 702 expire. It expires December 31st. That's where we use our technology to listen to telephone metadata for terrorists outside the United States. And it is critical in the face that we face threats from Iran right in this country and others that we not let that expire at December.
Once again, I ask. I have never had no beef. I've met people from all over the world since I have during my years of living here in the United States. I've met people from different cultures. I've met people from Jordan, from Iran, from Iraq. None of these people were bad people. Okay. None of them gave me the sense of like being a threat or anything like that. So it's like, that's why with the whole thing with military, that's why I would never ever join the fucking military because you're essentially selling your soul. If you break down the word of soldier, 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 like almost like you forfeit your soul. That's why I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody who has been in the military. Nobody. Because once you sign that paperwork to be a part of that, you are now U.S. government property. Okay. There's no telling what they do to y'all, these people that go sign up for that shit, once you're there. There's no telling what they chip y'all with. There's no telling what you're getting injected with. You sign that paperwork, you are literally signing your soul over to the U.S. government. So I'm not for wars. I don't care about starting wars with other countries or anything like that. These people have not done nothing to me personally. Whatever shit they got going on over there, maybe they need to stop fucking messing with people. You can't see targeted individuals can relate because we get fucked with, right? But then the minute we try to defend ourselves, we're labeled as terrorists. We're labeled as crazy. Look at that same dynamic and look at what's going on in other countries across the world. You expect for these other countries not to defend themselves when Americans are dipping their noses in people's business that they don't have no business being in? You don't expect for these people to be up in arms and wanting to defend themselves? It's the same thing with targeted individuals, the same type of thing.
September 31. So I've urged the Speaker, you figure out a way to have 702 not let it expire while these reforms are being debated and completed in the House. I'm ready to vote on the reforms because I think they're good and they stop the abuse of FISA and the abuse by the FBI. But I'm also not willing to let FISA expire on its 7.
What would truly stop the abuse is cutting off the funding completely. That's what will stop it.
702 provision.
Yeah, I understand, but there are threats everywhere with this administration, Congressman. You're talking about Iran. What about China? What about Russia? What about all of the surveillance coming onto America and the aggression that we've seen from China? I know you led a panel this week on concerns about China's economic future. The Journal this morning writing, China's economy is, quote, stuck in a vicious cycle. There's no clear escape route. The economy there has been weakening, and yet
Hell, it's been said that China owns the U.S. With all the money that's been said that we owe them. It's like they already own the U.S. and that they're have always been, for the most part, communist. And that's exactly what this country is turning into. It's turning into a communist country. And out over there, everything is controlled. They got social credit scores out there. They got, you can only have so many kids. I mean, they are just all like robots out, just controlled. And that's what they want for this country. What's it called? Marxism, communism, all that. It's already here. It's just they're trying to, you know, weed out, the people that are left that will speak up and that will fight. And it's just sad because there's not too many of us left. They're taking us out little by little. You know, before you know it, there's not going to be any more fighters, any more people to speak up. They attack the First Amendment. You try to speak your mind and talk about how you feel about certain things and topics and issues in the world, and it's like, you know, you're labeled something and then you get attacked. And it don't necessarily have to be a physical attack. It could be a financial attack. It could be spiritual attack. It could be attack on your relationships, attack on your environment to affect your health. I mean, there's so many different ways they could have you thinking they go shoot you with something, but really they end up doing something completely different that would devastate your life. Like you'll still live, but you'll be devastated type thing. It's like the the many so many veils with different evils behind them that they can use. But anyways,
They continue to be real aggressive against America with regard to surveillance and bullying. And yet we don't do anything about it. In fact, just recently, this week, we were talking about how there was an element within the defense bill about ensuring that companies report investing in Chinese companies. And
See, that's what it's all about, really. China then bought out a lot of these politicians. So that's why you have a lot of them that are like, oh, we got to renew it. And then you have others that are like actors. They'll be like, oh, we can't renew this, but they done already been bought out too. They just put on a show to make the American people think that something is being done when really it's just all a big clown show. That's why I say don't trust any of it. I just put it out merely for entertainment purposes and for some glimmer of hope in a sense that some kind of change can come about at least in our lifetime. you know, but hey, it is what it is. If everything that the Bible talks about is true, I mean, the shit is really, really playing out. The beast, who can make war with the beast, as it says. This was another little gathering that they had called Beyond the Skiff, a conversation on Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This was also recent, 7 days ago. Here you have, what's this guy's name? Darren LaHood. He's a U.S. representative for Illinois, I think, for the state of Illinois. And just a comment he made, I'm not going to play this whole thing, but he was talking about how he was illegally or improperly queried by the FBI. And a comment that his wife made sounded so familiar to me. It should sound familiar to you as a targeted individual. We've all heard this before, and I just thought it was funny. So let me just play what he says.
This American, everything he says,
Not this guy right here, Darren LaHood. He'll talk in just a second.
want to intercept. That's a powerful program, and it needs a lot of care.
Thank you for that answer, Stuart. I would just tell you, when I was improperly queried, my wife's response was, that couldn't possibly have happened. You're not that important. So, Karen, I'm going to.
Right? How many times have we heard that as targeted individuals when you try to explain to a loved one or a close friend, like, you are on this watch list and all these crazy things are happening to you? And how many times have you gotten that response? Well, why you? What's so special about you? Like, you're not a celebrity, you're not, famous or whatever. Like, shit, if only you knew. So anyways, I thought that was funny. But my question to him would be, with being queried by the FBI, are you now on a watch list? Have you been on a watch list? Are you experiencing gang stalking and harassment? He certainly doesn't look like he's experiencing gang stalking and harassment. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, with him getting, I wish I was a part of that panel, because I surely would have raised a question or asked more questions about him being queried. How did you come to find out that you were queried by the FBI? How were you able to find out? How can we find out as targeted individuals if we've been queried or if we're on a watch list? And sir, if you were queried and you're on a watch list, are you still on the watch list? Oh, no, you're not? Okay, well, how did you get off the watch list? So clearly this guy doesn't look like somebody who is targeted or going through the gang stalking like we do. Now, I don't want to go too far with it. Maybe he is, but he's going through it in his own way, because like I said, everyone's targeting is not the same. And I do truly believe there's different phases and different levels to the targeting. So, for him to have mentioned being queried, that was just kind of funny to me, like, oh wow, and then his wife's response was even more comical. But we'll listen to a little bit more of what they're saying. I'll move on to the next, whatever else I want to play. How many minutes? I know I talk a lot sometimes. I like to give context about what I talk about, especially if it has something to do with exposing these stalkers and the things that they do. Playing a 60-second clip of a vehicle just parked. You know what I'm saying? Just parked outside. They're stalking me, look. Like, no. Like, you want to give context, you want to give more detail as to what's happening. There I go, going off on a tangent. Let me finish playing this shit.
Turn to you. As data privacy conversations increase, not just domestically but internationally as well, the Section 702 discussion receives attention outside of the U.S., specifically concentrating on the EU. Could you elaborate on the international perspectives when it comes to Section 702?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, I think it's really important that we understand.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I've watched all of these. This is like an hour. The other one was like 2 or 3 hours. This one was like what 10 minutes or something like that. I've watched so many of these things, so I'll leave the links. After I post this up on YouTube, I'll leave the links in the description so you can watch, or you can just see the name of it and type it in the search. Beyond the Skiff: A Conversation of Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA Reform. So it's always just good to keep up with what they're talking about and just kind of see what how it may or may not affect you. This is another one. I watched this whole thing too. This is where they actually talk about some of the reforms. This is a little bit older, still recent, November 7th of this year. Um, we're getting down to the wire, so I'm trying to watch as much recent stuff as I possibly can. But yeah, this is where they actually talk about some of the reforms that they're going to propose and try to implement, that they want to try to get everyone to agree on to vote in for the reform aspect of it if they decide to reform it. But we are hoping that they're just going to get rid of it. Oh, let me play what this guy was saying. 1 second. There was one guy who was like, I'm pessimistic about it being renewed. The guy in the audience, when they went to question time. See if I can find it. That to do, no, I think after. Or, oh, come on. It was during question time, dang it. It was after him.
To play that game with national security.
I would just add vast areas of our intelligence.
It flashes that fast where you can't even see the guy. Crazy. You really want to show something, you can't find that. Anyways, y'all just watch it. It's the end part of it. And he was like, I'm pessimistic about it being renewed. And a bunch of these old heads, they're like, gotta renew it, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah.
That doesn't mean it Title I, or if you had to follow even the
But I wonder if you could talk about the consequences and
I think this is it.
wins.
Next question. Yeah, over here.
Good afternoon. Scott Cooper with the Atlantic Council. I'm quite pessimistic that we'll get a renewal. I'm not always a glass half empty person, but I wonder if you could talk about the consequences and implications if we don't get some kind of 702 renewal by December 31st.
But let me try that, because it is a disaster. Something like 50–60% of the president's daily brief has intelligence in it that comes from 702, or part of the material that was used to produce it is 702.
Man, that's all that shit is they want to be able to watch the people so that nobody puts a group together to overthrow the government when they get too out of line with their control. And that's another way of looking at it too. They got to watch everybody, make sure nobody's mobilizing to try to go against the government, to shut the government down. So that's another reason why they have to have this shit. And it just makes sense. If you're a dissident, if you're one who speaks out, if you're one who's like a gun rights advocate, to the hardest core, um, it would make sense that they would have to have something like this. But to fuck with people that aren't even being activists, who are just trying to, who are just an average Joe, just trying to make ends meet, live a normal life, it just doesn't make any sense. But they got movies like Minority Report. They got technology where they could possibly see things that could happen with certain people in the future, and they just got to keep some eyes on them. So who knows? Anyways, moving on.
Now, our founding fathers made it clear that if government agencies want to read an American's private communications, they should get a warrant.
Yes.
But today, America's intelligence agencies hoover up large volumes of electronic communications, and they claim they have a right to search individual Americans' texts and emails without getting a warrant. They don't have that right, and it's time for the law to reflect that. Our bill continues to give government agencies broad authority to collect information on threats at home and abroad, including the ability to act quickly in emergencies and settle up with a court later on. It does create much stronger protections for privacy of law-abiding Americans and restores the warrant protections that are at the heart of the Fourth Amendment. We also end the outdated distinction that says Americans have fewer rights if they're overseas. If the government is collecting their information overseas or through payments to these shady data brokers, protections for your private information shouldn't change.
Do you know how creepy it is for anyone around you, that is in your life on a daily? If they were given the heads up or the knowledge that they could see through your eyes, you know how creepy that is to know that someone knows that people can see through your eyes? That's one of the things that's most angering about this whole situation is they can see everything we got going on, they can hear everything we're doing, but we can't see what they're doing. If it's about national security, if it's about everyone, being transparent, why can't it be just that? Why can't we all see what each other are doing? You know what I mean? Why not have it like that, where everybody can see everybody at any given moment? But no, they're not going to do that because they already have people marked that they want to have marked to be targeted, and that's just that. So I'm just gonna end this video. Yeah, I had a long day today, and I'm just gonna relax, try to get some sleep. Yeah, y'all just do I want to play these now? I was gonna play these in another video. I'll do that in a video. Um, yeah, just safe. I'll keep y'all up to date. Those of y'all that watch my channel or do your own research about what's going on with FISA 702, and we'll see what happens.